I have a very limited understanding of Portland, Oregon. I was born there and my family promptly moved to Nashville, Tennessee. But I always heard stories about it from my mom, and then we go to visit my grandma and all my cousins and everybody. But, I'm drinking this good stuff. I think apple cider vinegar, all natural drink. Ooh! But, so basically, I was wanting to make a movie about how it's not the job of Portland City Council to decide what citizens say in their communication slots. So there's been a lot of really heavy-handed micromanaging to the point of bringing in the pepper spray to put in people's eyes to control what they say to City Council. And that's not a democracy. So Nick Fish and his cohorts are employing very anti-democratic measures. In the city of Portland, Oregon, which is one of the 50 states of the United States of America. And so, enjoying State Department briefings on democracy and blah, 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 whatever countries, I found it very unusual, the kind of government that goes on in Portland in the modern era. And it went from being somewhat civilized around 2013 to totally out of control. Really rapidly, actually. The Hales regime really was hard on people, and I think, I don't want to say Charlie Hales corrupted Nick Fish. Maybe it's the other way around, and Nick Fish has evidently survived. But from a campaign strategy, I wouldn't want to be him, because what he's been doing and what he's been permitting, the whole thing is they sit on their hands. They'll call in the police, have all the citizens brutalized, arrested, beaten up, crushed, pepper sprayed, whatever, and they sit on their hands and they ignore it like nothing happened. But we know something happened, and certain people that they like to bully, they have a very excessive obsession with brutalizing. And they seem to be intentionally trying to wreck people's lives and drive them to the point of insanity through political persecution. And we've got this new gal, Chloe Eudaly. I never met her. I've only met Ted Wheeler once, talked to him. And so I really don't have much to say about this new recent switcheroo. But Amanda Fritz I'm familiar with, Dan Saltzman, and Nick Fish. And I used to click with Nick Fish, but I think something's going on where he's so corrupted and he's so compromised, he's lost his moral compass, and it's pretty painful to see that going on. And I don't know if he better get out of it quick, but maybe he wants to put in another 5 or 10 years in this ongoing little job he has as a city councilman. But I think it's a disgrace that he doesn't have any moral compass or standards or self-respect enough to decry what is unconstitutional activity when it goes on. And his sort of like good German attitude about racism at Portland City Hall is deceptive and tragic. And there are racial divides being played out. There are race wars within the City Hall chamber. Jewish people are not appreciated. Black people are not appreciated. Women are treated in a derogatory manner. And I mean, there's ultimately a lot of classism too. There's Amanda Fritz's Britishy trying to be well-to-doism or whatever that is. I think, frankly, Amanda Fritz is un-American. She doesn't have any understanding of constitutional law, and she has it constantly violated, and she has no shame about it. It's so tragic. And poor Jen Saltzman, I think, is he on drugs? Or is he really a drunk? Or is he a pot smoker? How does he survive this wreck of a job he has with this violent city council, these incompetent, bumbling, lying, uncouth G4S security guards who act like little wannabe boss hog, like tyrants, at the behest of these detached, aloof, clueless city council people who, under Mayor Hales, became violent and mean and aggressive. It appears that they've done similar things. They've chased out the Kwanese Hayes protest or memorial and attacked them. There's some dodgy stuff going on. And some of the people that have long-term injuries and assaults and stalking, there have been numerous prosecutions and they just keep rolling them out. And they ultimately do want to drive people out of town. People that ask too many questions, people that have... I mean, it's almost like it's an unpleasant job because it's so boring. They just talk about really boring things normally. Sewers and, I don't know, like drains. I mean, this is some of the most boring stuff you ever saw. But that's no excuse to develop an interest in sadism. The people, the citizens, if they have something to come and talk to you about, you should listen to them. And you should thank them. And if they aren't as educated or polished or suave in their language skills, you should be kind to them anyway and say, well, thank you so much for your ideas and insight. We will take that into consideration. There should be no exclusions. There should be no arrests. There should be no pepper spray. It's city council. Every human in the city has a right to be there, including people with disabilities and including people who have divergent viewpoints. And that is the whole purpose of the forum, is to hear the divergent viewpoints and move about their business, which usually involves giving money to their friends. And so they don't like anything that slows down the process of giving money to their friends. And by that I mean contracts. So getting a stalking order on an activist you've beaten up already, you've arrested already, you've crushed his wrists, you've crushed his camera, then finally you get a stalking order on him via your little henchman, Jeff Merkley's old worker who used to work at OMSI, named James Dunphy, who wants to go in the paper proclaiming that he's a white guy who's afraid of his job for the city government, and that he wants to blame it on a little Jewish guy that he's so scared of. And I am afraid James Dunphy is a racist. I'm afraid he's anti-Semitic. I'm afraid Nick Fish is too, even though Phyllis Schester might be Jewish, and he just doesn't know how to express his feelings for this Jewish guy who's been losing his mind under the stress of contemplating the irresponsible management of the police force in the wake of a shooting. This is the city council that covered up for a police chief who committed a shooting drunk and covered it up for a month. So when the people were outraged at the bad management of the police or the city, the answer was not to crack down on the people and create a whole new series of crimes and criminal wrongdoings, hurting the people. That was not the answer. Violence was not the answer. It's kind of as if they are behaving as sort of like desperate and fearful people. And I think what they're most afraid of is the truth. It is not their position to regulate what the people have to say. What the people have to say is coming from their own unique soul. And it's not their position to regulate how we feel about their governance, whether that's on a YouTube video or on a blog or on a Twitter account or a Facebook account. And they also don't know how to handle the internet, because what we've done is cracked open so much transparency into their criminal wrongdoings and their cover-ups and their brutality, their vendettas, their retaliation, their violation of federal laws, that they don't know what to do. They're on the brink of turning into Putin-esque fascism, where they kill journalists. We are on the brink of murdering journalists in the city of Portland. They've got all kinds of extrajudicial measures, namely brutality on journalists' hands, brutality on our wrists, ripping our shoulders, terrifying us, and threatening to plant weapons, which I read all about this in the Anna Politkovskaya I'm reading in Putin's Russia. And this is it was a ritualized, normal feature of this so-called justice system for these people she's writing about at the end of the book. And it was so mind-blowing, because I was like, that's what they're doing in Portland. And it was such a shock to my system, because it seems so wrong and so un-American, and it is. But these people need to be confronted on why they protect racism in their police force. Why are they protecting Mark Kruger? Why are they silencing activists who ask that question? Why do they want to silence me or Teresa Rayford or Laura Vanderlyn? And I think David Davis is foul sometimes. He's really foul. But I don't think it's my position to decide what he is allowed to say, what he is allowed to spew. And so much of what he has to say is so good that some of his more foul content, it's hard to know if it's not a mental illness that's induced by the stress of being under attack all the time. And that's the definition of gaslighting, breaking people down through violence, which I think when that violence started in 2015, it hit really hard. Things were looking pretty good in a person's life until they get assaulted in the Portland City Council chamber. And then everything kind of spirals downhill mentally. And I think that's what they're going for. They're trying to push people to the brink of a nervous breakdown through cruelty. Zersetzung is the term. I learned in my Litvinenko book of such an incredible pattern of targeted harassment that they drive people out of their minds. I think Portland does that. Nick Fish is into it. Amanda Fritz, I always just want to cut her a break. She's got such, she can be charming little bits here and there, but her callous disregard for the suffering of the Jewish people, oh my gosh, how could she protect that neo-Nazi on her police force in the wake of the PortlandStabbing and put that guy down when she wouldn't even answer his question, dodging that question. Oh, and retaliation against all the whistleblowers against Mark Kruger. And you notice they're the ones getting picked off. Picked off. If you complain about the Nazi on the Portland police force, expect some kind of malicious prosecution. Expect your YouTube to be sent to the DA. Ooh, because the DA doesn't have any real crime. The DA just has to watch YouTube all day and look at Facebook posts of little overeducated activists with nothing to do all day besides talk about the city government. Anyway, Portland. I don't live there anymore. You can't catch me. Bye, Portland.